What's up guys, Ruppy here, welcoming you to my Week 2 Team Builder video for the A-Drive Army Battle League. This week we are going to be taking on the Detroit Red Gyarados, coached by Shadow Ghoul. They are also 1-1, picking up a 2-0 victory last week I believe. So, while they do share the same record as us, we are ahead of them in our division just because we got the 6-0 last week. Hoping to maybe do it again this week, but I'm not going to make any promises. I have some high hopes, though. Try not to get them too high, though, because obviously if I do that, I am probably going to end up biting myself in the ass on it. Anyway. Off to the right, you can see his team there, and he has a rather nasty-ish team, to say the least. It was a bit interesting to prep for, I'll say that much. First off, let's start with his Tier 1 draft pick, Tapu Fini. One more really needs to be said about Tapu Fini. This thing is the defensive Tapu, and it is a royal pain to try to take down. It can set up screens, it can defog, it can taunt. Just the fact that it comes in sets up misty terrain, so you can't status his mons, which thankfully was not my plan this week anyway. Overall, this thing is actually quite an issue to take down because it's got some good bulk. Water Fairy is definitely not a bad type. He does have a second Fairy type, though, as you can see sitting off to the side there in Florges, which is Pure Fairy. I guess I can understand why he would grab a second Fairy. I mean, Florges mostly works as a wall and a Cleric. So, the Cleric thing is definitely something it has going for it that Fini does not. Both could potentially also set up Calm Minds, but I would honestly figure they would be more of a defensive backbone for him, considering he's got plenty of offensive threats as it is. Moving on, we have Aerodactyl next, as we continue down the line. Don't know where was my train of thought was trying to go there. Aerodactyl is a problem. Plain and simple. It is a bit of a problem for me. Rock Flying type, it is ridiculously fast. It actually speed ties with Jolteon, which is the fastest mon on my team in terms of base speed, if I recall correctly. And Aerodactyl, this thing can hit me really hard depending on what kind of set he's running. It is also one of his Stealth Rock setters. If he decides he wants to go with that tactic. It would be a bit of a suicide lead, but it would definitely be an option at least. And I'm not gonna lie, the prospect of Focus Sash Aerodactyl does scare me a little bit, more so than a Life Orb set actually, or anything else he may want to run that obviously isn't Mega Aerodactyl because he didn't draft the Mega. Because I kind of need this thing to just take a hit and die pretty much. Moving on, we also have Swampert here, which, nice defensive Pokemon, another water type that can kind of just sit in there and annoy me to no end. It's another rock setter. Part of me doesn't feel like he's gonna bring it because, I have a couple of answers to it, but you never know, he might bring it in just to help bolster his defenses more than anything else. You probably see the two Pokemon that are sitting off to the side of Swampert, though. Yep, he has Abomasnow and Alolan Sandslash. He was not able to get the Alolan Ninetales, but he does still have Hail, and he does have a Slush Rush Abuser, and probably the best one at that, in the Ice-Steel type Alolan Sandslash. Alolan Sandslash is really the only thing on his team that benefits from Hail, but it's definitely a nifty tactic to, try to help clean up late game if he brings in Abomasnow, if he ends up sacking it off. As long as the Hail's there, Alolan Sandslash can come in and start tearing through teams. I'm not as concerned about the tactic, but it's definitely an option he could run, and if I don't manage it properly, then it could become a problem. But I think I've brought more than enough this week to be able to handle that. Next on the list is Zebstrika, which is an interesting Pokemon to say the least. I'm not as concerned about it. It can do some damage to my team, but there are a few mods I have that this thing pretty much cannot really touch. So, I'm not as confident about him bringing it. If he does, then good for him. But I think I can play. I prepped enough to play around it really easily, honestly. His Mega is a Mega Camerupt. And I'm gonna tell you guys straight up right now, Mega Camerupt is, believe it or not, a huge problem for my team. The only thing I really have going for me is that Mega Camerupt is stupidly slow. And, well, now that I think about it, he does have the prospect of Trick Room, which could be a bit of a problem. But I'm not as concerned about it. Basically, Mega Camerupt, it hits just about everything on my team in one form or another ridiculously hard. It 2-hit KOs just about everything on my team. I do have things that can easily pick it off, taking advantage of the fact that it is slower than me. And I do have some things that should be able to tank at least one hit from this thing and then get it off the field. So with any luck, Mega Camerupt won't be as big of a problem as it's looking to be on paper. I'm almost positive he's going to bring it though, because honestly, well, I'll get more into that in just a moment. Moving on, he also has Tyranitar, so he has the Premier Sand Setter as well, which is interesting because his team really, other than maybe Aerodactyl, I guess Mega Camerupt, and Alolan Duck, well, he has a few things that aren't that aren't hit by Sandstorm, but Sand really doesn't benefit his team in any way, shape, or form. Really, for this game, other than maybe trying to hit me a bit harder, depending on the mons he thinks I'm going to bring, the only purpose T-Tar I think would really serve is basically trying to keep me from setting up Rain, which, as you'll see, I am bringing Rain this week, but I'm not truly bringing a Rain team. But I'll get more into that in just a moment. T-Tar, it can take hits under Sandstorm, but there are a few things it really does not want to tangle with at all, and there are a few things that I don't even think it will be capable of touching. Or if it wants to go one-on-one with them, it is not going to appreciate it, because I can almost guarantee it's going to come out on the losing end of it. Conkeldurr is a mon I am familiar with. I have actually used it in a previous draft format league, which it was one of the leagues that started off decently enough and then kind of died out. And I don't really recall getting to use Conkeldurr in a game, actually, but even still, I am familiar with what this mon can do in Draft League format. It has a couple different things it can run. Most likely, I think it's probably going to come Assault Vested. Maybe he could run Guts and just get a Flame or Toxic Orb off before Tapu Fini's Misty Surge activates, if he does bring both of them. But considering how slow Conkeldurr is, I'm not the most concerned. He definitely does have the potential for a Trick Room team, but I think I've got enough tanks to be able to not really be bothered by Trick Room at all. Especially since, by the looks of things, he really doesn't have a whole lot in the way of Trick Room setters. That Jellicent is the only one I am aware of off the top of my head. You'll probably see something appear on the screen if I discover afterwards that he has more than one Trick Room setter, but to my knowledge, that Jellicent seems to be the only one. There's also the Alolan Dug Trio, which is an interesting pickup, I feel, just because of the fact that a lot of people have come to this consensus that the original Dug Trio, the one from Kanto, is actually superior just because of the fact that it gets Arena Trap, and I can definitely see it. I mean, Tangling Hair is an interesting ability for it to have. I guess it actually could benefit from Sand now that I think about it, but I am honestly not really seeing much use for Alolan Dug Trio beyond that, especially since a good portion of my team kind of really mitigates what it could actually do to me. So, I'm getting a little quicker on trying to run through my opponent's team. Trying to basically just give you guys the gist of it. Hopefully, I'm doing a much better job this week than I did last week, where I just kind of really went through everything. So let's go ahead and get into my team, shall we? And the lead mon on my team for this week is Herbivore, my Mega Venusaur. I'm running the exact same set I did last week, because to be perfectly honest, defensive Mega Venusaur works. If you take a close look at his team, there are really only 2 Mons that, once Herbivore gets Mega Evolved, there's really only 2 Mons that could potentially threaten it. Mega Camerupt, and depending on what its flying type move is it's running, if it chooses to run one, Aerodactyl. Everything else on his team, it just barely falls shy of 2-hit KOing this Mega Venusaur set. And even if Herbivore is not just completely wiping it out, it's still doing more than enough damage to be able to take out everything in response, especially since I do have Synthesis to try to heal up. I contemplated replacing it with Leech Seed because I have a feeling Weather's going to start coming into play against me to try to limit Synthesis. But honestly, I think I would actually feel more comfortable with the more instant recovery than anything else, especially since I do feel like I'm going to need Hidden Power Fire, so Herbivore actually has a way of taking care of Alolan Sandslash if it comes down to it. Thankfully, because of Thick Fat, Alolan Sandslash still isn't doing a whole lot to Mega Venusaur, and if he starts trying to set up Swords Dances, yeah, that is right, Swords Dances. That doesn't sound right for whatever reason. Anyway, I can actually 2-shot it with Hidden Power Fire, at least. I'm pretty sure it's an Oko, but it depends on what kind of spray it's running. It will definitely limit what that thing can do, especially if I'm able to wear it down. Mega Camerupt actually 2-hit KOs Herbivore, even through the Thick Fat, just because it's got access to Sheer Force, as long as it's running Fire Blast. Overheat, not as much, because Overheat really doesn't give him anything as far as a Sheer Force boost. So Fire Blast would actually be better. If he's running a Wall Breaker set, that's what I'm expecting him to run. Depending on how much I get back from Synthesis, which is also weather dependent, I may be able to stall him out of Fire Blasts, but I would prefer not to play that game. Mega Camerupt is a huge problem for me in general, as you'll come to see. Aerodactyl, if he actually runs Fly Z and uses at least Fly, then Mega Aerodactyl actually will knock out Herbivore in one shot. Fly on its own actually will not be able to OHKO me with this spread, even if he runs Adamant, which is actually quite impressive. If he actually pulls something like Power Herb Sky Attack, though, that will knock me out, and that would actually be some really nice tech on his part, if I can be honest. I don't feel like he's going to run it because it doesn't seem like it's got much use beyond maybe just taking out Herbivore, but he could surprise me. Honestly though, until I find out what kind of flying type move that Aerodactyl is actually running, and if I can discern its item, I'm not planning on leaving Herbivore in to deal with it anyway, just to be on the safe side, because once Mega Camerupt and Aerodactyl are out of the way, Herbivore pretty much runs a train through his entire team. It is just a tank that cannot be stopped. So that's why Herbivore is kind of an obvious bring for me this week. I'm really curious to see how he prepped for it, because it should be pretty obvious that Herbivore does a huge number to his team, barring a few Mons. That's why I can almost guarantee Mega Camerupt's coming. Why I'm so positive Aerodactyl is probably going to come to this game. Everything else is kind of a toss-up, but I really feel like Herbivore is going to put in a lot of work this game and keep racking up the kills after it landed 4 last week, to my own surprise. The next Mon on the list is Mabel, bringing my Jirachi again. And for the second week in a row, I am going Stealth Rock 3 attacks, though I'm running a bit more of an offensive set this week. As you can tell by the EV spread, I'm running max special attack, max speed, 4 special defense EVs. Really just to make sure I outspeed what I need to and hit things hard enough. Because Mabel's purpose for this match is to set up Stealth Rocks and then try to hit things as hard as it can to wear things down, take things out, basically try to make my life a little easier. And to help ensure that, I am running the Air Balloon item this week. The reasoning is, The air balloon basically guarantees that if Mabel finds herself in a situation against a Mon that would carry Earthquake, and he does have quite a few on his team that do run Earthquake, or have access to it, or even Earth Power at least, Mabel will be immune to those hits, so none of his Mons will be able to one-shot me. Well, outside of Mega Camera Up with a Fire-type attack, but I'll get to that in a moment. But Aerodactyl will have to pop my balloon before it can Earthquake me, and if he's not running Focus Sash, then Mabel will be able to one-shot it with a Flash Cannon. Swampert, I have Energy Ball for. Energy Ball also gives me a way to at least hit Tapu Fini harder than Flash Cannon will. I was going to run Thunderbolt instead, but Energy Ball is the better option because even if Thunderbolt does hit Fini a little harder, Energy Ball gives Mabel a way to hit the Swampert if he brings that. As Energy Ball also hits the Jellicent fairly nicely as well. You've probably noticed the Water Pulse, though. Yeah, I put that on there solely for one reason and one reason only, and its name is Mega Camerupt. Since Mabel does outspeed Mega Camerupt no matter what EV spread I run on it for speed EVs, Water Pulse is actually not it's a 2-hit KO at best. It does not one-shot Mega Camerupt, even though it is quad weak to it. Probably just because Water Pulse is only 60 base power, and Mega Camerupt actually has some pretty decent special defense, surprisingly. But I threw it on there anyway, mostly just because if I can wear down that Mega Camerupt enough, then I should be able to surprise him with Water Pulse and just completely take out Mega Camerupt before it does any harm to me. Alternatively, I could also set up the Rain and Water Pulse Mega Camerupt that way, since that is definitely an option. Water Pulse actually has a really good chance. It is a bit of a roll, but it's a roll that's more in my favor to OHKO this thing in the Rain. Maybe not so much if he runs a more defensive tanky set, but if I get my rocks up and chip away at that thing, then it's going to find itself in Water Pulse range eventually, and Mabel will be able to take it out from there, regardless of whether or not I've got the Rain up. Since I did mention Rain, that brings me to my next Mon, Onion. Sorry about the cut there, I had to tend to something family related for a moment. In any event, getting back on track, you've noticed that I've mentioned Rain, and you see that I have decided to bring my beloved little Rain God this week, as people have apparently affectionately started referring to it as. Onion the Pelipper is making its AABL debut this week. Now, as I was stating briefly earlier, I am bringing Rain this week, but I'm not necessarily bringing a Rain team. Onion is running Drizzle this week, and it's pretty much running a standard defensive set, Scald, Hurricane, U-Turn, and Roost. And I'm actually running Leftovers as opposed to a Damp Rock, so I'm only going to have 5 turns of Rain. But honestly, other than tanking hits and trying to take out a few Mons that might get in my way with Scald and Hurricane, Onion really has 2 purposes for this game, as far as Drizzle's concerned. 1, weakening Mega Camerupt's attacks so it can't Fire Blast everything into oblivion, which is really going to be beneficial to hopefully helping to chip away at that thing and get rid of it, so it's not basically doing the same to me to set me up for the rest of his team. And 2, which is less of a priority in hindsight, but it would still be nice just to make things a little easier on my end from a mid-game strategy standpoint. It'll allow me the chance to deprive him of both Hail and Sand, depending on which one he wants to bring, or both even. So that way, he's not trying to use any of his weather abusers against me. I did not bring Kingdra this week. Onion is really only here just to get rid of his weather, and otherwise, hit certain things hard with Scald and Hurricane just to take him out, and otherwise serve as a bit of a defensive check to a few things as well, depending on what he brings. Because I'm not expecting Onion to put in a lot of work this game, but it could surprise me. Especially since, as long as it really sticks to its main purpose of setting up Rain just to try to throw a wrench into his plans, then I think everything's going to be good. Especially since I feel like he's going to be more concerned with trying to get his... I feel like he's going to bring at least one of his weathers. And more than likely, he's going to do it more so just to try and prevent me from setting up rain than anything else. And the only reason I'm bringing rain is to keep him from setting up weather. So if it turns out he only brings a weather setter and no sweeper, maybe that will work to my advantage. That's where the mind game comes in. But honestly, I don't need rain to win this game. Being able to get it up would just make my life a little easier depending on what his team ends up being. The next mon I'm bringing is Master Feng, coming back from the Shaolin Temple to help me out for another week. Actually, I need to change this really quick because that is wrong. Double check, make sure this is still good. Yep, it's still good. Alright. I could have sworn I changed that. Don't know why it didn't transfer over. Anyway, good thing I noticed that while I was recording this video. Anyway, so Master Feng here. I'm running a Choice Scarf set again, mostly just to make sure that Master Feng outspeeds and hits what it needs to. Kind of running the same spread as last week. As far as moves, the only moves I'm running from last week that are making a return are U-turn and knockoff, which are really only there just for pivot purposes and knocking off items to try to make things a little easier, especially against some of his more defensive mons. Poison Jab I really only put on there just so I had something that could hit the Tapu Fini kind of hard. But other than that, Poison Jab really doesn't serve much of a purpose. It's really only there to try to help wear down the Fini. But the real star of the show here is in its moveset is going to be High Jump Kick. Especially since I am running Reckless this week as opposed to Regenerator. Good to make sure I had that change in there because Reckless High Jump Kick actually one-shots just about everything on his team. I think off the top of my head, the only things it does not actually one-shot are Tapu Fini and Floor, just because they resist and can have quite a bit of physical bulk to them. I think it just barely misses out on Okoing the Swampert, depending on its spread, if it's a more defensive one. And obviously, High Jump Kick is a horrible idea against the likes of Jellicent because it's a Ghost type. The fact that I could run through his team with Scarf, Reckless, High Jump Kick, Mineshow is really the main reason I would expect to see Jellicent on his side of the field. Because that, as long as Jellicent is there, it prevents me from just spamming High Jump Kick and tearing through his team with it. But if he does bring Jellicent and it goes down, then Master Feng is basically, it has free reign to just start kicking everything into oblivion. Moving on. Yup, I'm bringing it this week. I am bringing, making its AABL debut, Sweet Treat the Slurpuff. Look at how adorable it is. And, yeah, I have a feeling this thing could actually be quite ferocious. Especially if he's not expecting me to bring it. But I'm bringing Sweet Treat because while I was prepping for this team, I noticed a golden opportunity. Some of his more defensive things, they really cannot hit Sweet Treat hard enough to bring it into Citrus Berry range. So he actually does have a number of things on his team that actually do not hit Slurpuff that hard. So, I know the set is kind of standard. It's Slurpuff's proverbial bread and butter. Or I guess, icing on the cupcake, perhaps. But Belly Drum, Play Rough, Return, Drain Punch, Unburden is the ability, Citrus Berry for the item. I think you know what the deal is. I Belly Drum, I eat my Citrus Berry, and then Sweet Treat pretty much goes to town his entire team. I have actually ran the counts. I have just enough speed investment running Jolly with 228 speed EVs that I can outspeed Alolan Sandslash even if it's operating under Slush Rush if my Unburden is active. I will still be able to outspeed it, and with these 3 moves alone, I actually will one-shot literally everything on his entire team. Play Rough, it destroys just about everything. It actually does not destroy the Mega Camerupt, but Return actually does more than enough damage to take care of that. And Drain Punch is there really for Abomasnow and Alolan Sandslash, and maybe to a lesser extent Alolan Dugtrio as well. Because even though Play Rough could take them out, just because the 2 Steel types there are actually a little more on the frail side, but Drain Punch will allow me to get some all-important extra recovery to ensure that Sweet Treat, once it's set up, will basically mow his team down. I really feel like Sweet Treat could net me a sweep here, but it's gonna take it's gonna take the right situation, and I'm honestly pretty positive I'm gonna get it because I can almost guarantee he's gonna bring at least 1 or 2 of his more defensive mons. Just because of what I have to kind of run through him. I'm not really planning on trying it with Jellicent because of the potential of Will-O-Wisp, unless I catch him in a situation where it's Slurpuff versus Jellicent with Misty Terrain up from the Tapu Fini. That would be the only exception I would make to that matchup. But basically, Sweet Treat's main purpose is to punish him for trying to get a little defensive against me. Because if he has one of his more defensive mons in, Sweet Treat can set up and then basically go to town on everything. And there's really nothing he'd be able to do to stop it either, is the fun part about it. And last but not least, I am bringing Panzer, my ever so annoying Type Null, the tank to end all tanks. Obviously I'm going Eviolite again, Battle Armor is his obvious ability, so no crits. And he does not really have anything that can run Mold Breaker as far as I can see. So, yeah. I am running a bit more of an offensive one this week. I'm running Max HP, Max Attack, Adamant Nature, and only 4 Special Defense EVs. But even with this spread, he has nothing on his team, aside from potentially Mega Camerupt if he's running a more offensive variant, that can 2-hit KO Panzer. Everything at best is about a 3-hit KO, barring any setup. A more offensive Wall Breaker, Mega Camerupt would actually be able to 2-hit KO me, depending on the rolls, I think. And Conkeldurr obviously would be a problem as well. But Return, Swords Dance, Rest, and Sleep Talk is the set. Panzer's real purpose here, which it could also function as a bit of a sweeper as well. Tank hits, set up Swords Dances, rest off the damage, and just hit everything with Return. The only thing that would really not work well with this plan is the Jellicent. But, to be honest, unless he actually runs a water move, most likely Scald, on that Jellicent, while Panzer wouldn't be able to touch him, Jellicent wouldn't be able to touch Panzer either. So if I can deduce whether or not that Jellicent has a water-type move if he brings it, then Panzer actually would not be afraid to sit in there, boost up on Jellicent. I wouldn't be able to touch it. Well, actually, I'd probably still switch out just to have something else get Jellicent out of the picture so Panzer would actually be able to sweep. But he wouldn't actually be able to do anything significant to me that would really cause me any sort of concern. So there we go, that was my team prep for this game. I'm actually playing my match in just under an hour or so. So I had this team a little prep beforehand, I just didn't have the time to actually record the video. So I think this team is really going to work out for me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And I will see you guys. I've been Ruppy, thank you guys for watching, and my Columbus Swoo and I will see you soon for what will hopefully be our second victory of the AABL season. Take care, guys.